The Netflix series shines a light on a forgotten moment in American history. But the deeper story, that's where the real power lies. Death by Lightning takes place at a moment where the United States stood at a crossroads between tradition and modernity, corruption and reform, superstition and science. A moment frighteningly similar to the crossroads we stand at today. So the real question isn't just what happened to President Garfield, it's what does his story reveal about us and about the America we're becoming? Watch Death by Lightning, the Netflix limited series dramatizing the life and assassination of President James A. Garfield. It can feel like a story ripped from fiction. A brilliant but reluctant scholar president, a deeply troubled assassin convinced that God and politics were on his side, a nation wrestling with corruption and a medical system that simply didn't know what it didn't know. But beyond the drama, there's real history. History that shaped, scarred, and in many ways transformed the American nation. Much of what we see on screen comes directly from Candace Millard's acclaimed 2011 book, Destiny of the Republic, a tale of madness, medicine, and the murder of a president. Millard's book not only reconstructs the events of 1881, but also illuminates the cultural, scientific, and political forces that converged in the tragedy of James Garfield's death. In this episode, we're going to explore the world behind the series, the life and reluctant presidency of James Garfield, the political machine that fueled the drama, the spoil system and the stalwart in the unfortunately named half-breed divide, the troubled mind of Charles Guiteau, the flawed medical treatment that did as much or more to end Garfield as the bullet did itself, and the profound changes that followed in the wake of this national trauma. This is the story of a nation on the verge of reform, of modernity, of a new political and scientific age, and of how one violent moment forced the United States to confront truths it had long ignored. Before the assassination, before the politics, and before the tragedy, there was James Abram Garfield, one of the most unlikely presidents in American history. Born in 1831 in rural Ohio, Garfield grew up poor, fatherless, and with few expectations placed upon him. He worked on canal boats, chopped wood, and attended a one-room schoolhouse. Yet he possessed a restless intellect. By his 20s, he was a college president, a preacher, and a self-taught linguist who, as myth would have us believe, could write Greek with one hand and Latin with the other. Millard opens Destiny of the Republic with this contradiction. Garfield never wanted to be president. He was drafted against his will at the 1880 Republican National Convention in Chicago. The country saw in him something rare: integrity. A war hero, a seasoned congressman, and a man untouched by scandal. He seemed the perfect antidote to Gilded Age corruption. To understand Garfield's story, we must understand the era he inherited. The late 19th century was America's first Gilded Age, glittering on the surface, corroded and flawed underneath. This was the age of rapid industrial expansion through railroad, steel, oil, of titanic wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, urbanization and immigration reshaping American identity, and a political system dominated by patronage, party bosses, and machine politics. To many, Garfield represented the possibility of a different path. What Death by Lightning shows so effectively, and what Millard brings vividly to life, is the corruption embedded in the spoils system. The spoils system was, it was simple. To the victor go the spoils. If your party won, you handed out government jobs, postal positions, custom house appointments, and ambassadorships in exchange for loyalty. Merit mattered little, if at all, and competence mattered less. The system had been growing for decades, but by the 1870s and 1880s, it had become a monster. The federal government was the largest employer in the country. Jobs meant income, power, and influence. They were the currency of political loyalty, and no place represented this corruption better than the New York Customs House, shown dramatically in the series. The Customs House was the most lucrative government office in the nation, responsible for collecting tariffs on goods entering the port of New York. Yes, tariffs. In an era before income tax, this was the government's primary revenue stream. To control the Customs House was to control American politics. Senator Roscoe Conkling, the arch-villain of this world, commanded the New York Republican machine known as the Stalwarts. Millard portrays Conkling as arrogant, flamboyant, and fiercely loyal to the old patronage system. Conkling believed that the party boss, not the president, should control appointments. Garfield, from the half-breed faction of the reformers, believed the opposite. The epithet half-breed was invented in derision by the stalwarts to denote those whom they perceived as being only half Republican. It's like being called a rhino today. Thus, the stage was set for a showdown. The fight between Garfield and Conkling over who had the power to appoint the head of the New York Customs House was at the heart of this fight. Now, this may sound bureaucratic, even trivial, but in truth, at the time, it was a clash over who controlled American democracy, elected leaders or unelected party bosses. This tension forms one of the central conflicts in both the Millard book and the Netflix series, and it is what ultimately pulls Charles Guiteau into the orbit of the presidency. In the book, Millard devotes significant attention to Charles Guiteau, the man who assassinated Garfield. And this is critical to understanding the story. Of course, he becomes incredibly important in the Netflix series as well. Guiteau was not a typical political fanatic. He was not a trained assassin. He was not a man coherent in ideology. He was mentally unstable, a drifter whose life was marked by delusion, failure, and rejection. Guiteau's background included years in the utopian Oneida community where he was disliked and nicknamed Charles Guiteau. Unsuccessful attempts at law, preaching, and writing, a failed attempt to serve as a diplomat, which he believed he deserved simply for delivering a speech supporting Garfield. What's striking, painful even, is how American society of the 1870s and 80s had no framework for understanding mental illness. Guiteau was dismissed as eccentric, annoying, or incompetent, but his signs of psychosis went unrecognized. What Death by Lightning captures, drawing directly from Millard's book, is the tragic absurdity of Guiteau's delusion. He believed God had chosen him to unite the Republican Party by removing Garfield. He imagined himself a hero, not a villain. Had Guiteau lived today, he might have been identified early, treated, perhaps institutionalized. In 1881, he was invisible until he became infamous. Guiteau is a symbol of something larger, the gaps in a rapidly modernizing society where political extremism, mental illness, and personal desperation could converge in catastrophic ways. On July 2nd, 1881, at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C., Guiteau approached President Garfield and shot him twice. One bullet grazed Garfield's arm. The second lodged somewhere inside the president's torso. But, and this is crucial, we know now the wound was survivable. If Garfield had been treated with sterile techniques, he almost certainly would have lived. This is where Millard's narrative shines. The book, Destiny of the Republic, is as much a story about the history of medicine as it is about the history of politics. By 1881, European doctors like Joseph Lister had developed antiseptic procedures. Listerism was gaining acceptance abroad. Germ theory was revolutionizing surgery. But American medicine lagged behind. Leading American doctors dismissed Lister's ideas as European nonsense. They believed infection came from bad air, not bacteria. Many prided themselves on old-fashioned heroic medicine. Dr. D. Willard Bliss, the physician who took charge of Garfield's care, is one of the tragic antagonists of this story. Bliss repeatedly probed Garfield's wound with unwashed hands and unsterilized instruments. He ignored second opinions and refused to step aside. The result was catastrophic. Garfield developed massive infections, abscesses, sepsis, and ultimately organ failure. For 79 days he suffered, wasting away while the nation anxiously followed newspaper reports. Garfield wasn't killed by Guiteau's bullet. He was killed by a medical system unprepared for the scientific revolution already underway. Guiteau himself even argued at trial, "I did not kill the president. The doctors did." Legally wrong, morally convenient, but medically, tragically, close to the truth. One of the most compelling threads in Millard's book and the dramatized produced something rare in American politics: reform through national grief. When Chester A. Arthur, previously a Conkling loyalist and defender of the spoils system, succeeded Garfield, the country braced for corruption and machine politics, thinking it would deepen. Instead, Arthur surprised everyone. Garfield's death changed him. He rejected Conkling. He embraced civil service reform, and he championed the Pendleton Civil Service Act of 1883. This act began the dismantling of the spoils system. Government jobs increasingly required exams and merit-based hiring. It was one of the most significant political reforms of the 19th century. And Garfield did not live to see the reform he hoped for, but his death made that reform possible. Millard's book and the Netflix series offer more than a historical narrative. They hold a mirror up to American society then and now. Start with the fragility of democracy. The fight between Garfield and Conkling was about who controls the levers of government. The assassination brought this struggle into sharp relief. Democracy, Millard reminds us, is only as strong as the systems we build to protect it. Second, the cost of political extremism. Guiteau believed he was acting as a political savior. His delusion was personal, but his rhetoric echoed the overheated language of the day. The lesson is clear. When politics becomes a battlefield of absolutist beliefs, violence becomes thinkable. Next, the importance of science and the danger of rejecting it. Lister's work could have saved Garfield's life. The refusal to accept scientific evidence, a refusal rooted in arrogance, tradition, and nationalism, proved fatal. Next, the power of grief to create change. Garfield's death moved the country. It created a moral imperative for reform. And last, but far from least, is the human side of history. Millard's book is beloved, not because it is a political treatise, but because it is deeply human. A brilliant president who never wanted power, a wounded nation struggling with its identity, an assassin who fell through every crack in society, an inventor whose genius came too late, and a country that stumbled into a more modern age. So who is James Garfield, and why does he matter? Well, James Garfield is often forgotten in the broader sweep of American history. He served only 200 days in office. He left no sweeping legislative legacy, but his story is significant for several reasons. He represents the best of American possibility, a poor child who rose through learning, discipline, and moral courage. His assassination exposed the rot of the spoils system, a system that undermined democracy from within. His suffering revealed the flaws in American medicine and helped accelerate the acceptance of antiseptic practice. His death produced major political reform, a rare case of national tragedy leading to national improvement. This is why Death by Lightning resonates with modern audiences. It's not just the story of a forgotten president. It's the story of a country grappling with questions that still matter. How do we balance tradition with progress? How do we protect democracy from corruption? How do we treat mental illness with compassion? How do we ensure science and evidence guide public life? And how do we remember leaders who tried, however briefly, to steer us towards something better? Candace Millard's Destiny of the Republic gives us a richly layered portrait of James Garfield's world, a nation caught between eras, a political system stretched to its limits, and a medical profession undergoing a revolution. The Netflix series, Death by Lightning, brings this world to life with visual urgency. But the power of the story lies in its historical truth. Garfield's life, and especially his death, reveal an America that was still learning how to govern itself, how to trust science, and how to confront its own contradictions. In the end, Garfield's story is not just about a bullet or a madman or a flawed medical system. It is about the choices a nation makes when confronted with crisis and the possibility of renewal that can follow. Garfield himself once said, "The truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable." The truth of Garfield's death was miserable indeed, but it set the nation on a path toward cleaner government, modern medicine, and a deeper awareness of what democratic leadership should truly look like. And that is why Death by Lightning is not just a historical drama. It's a lens through which we can better understand America then and now.